Hey guys, it's Jamin with Explore Enduro, and today we are doing the final full review on the GasGas EX300 two-stroke. This thing, fantastic bike. Beautiful bike from GasGas. This thing looks really good. The red color just pops, especially out here in the red desert. The EX300 is a cross-country model that is similar to an XC KTM or a TX Husqvarna. Let's get into this EX300 a little bit about it. It's a lot like the KTMs, the Husqvarnas, with a little bit of a twist of its own. It was appealing to me because of the price point and because of some of the components that it has. It has the exact air forks. So they're an air fork. Then you have the Brembo braking system. Brembo's been proven for a long time on the KTMs. TPI, fuel injected, two-stroke. I really am a fan of these fuel injected bikes. I don't have any complaints. I think it is way better than playing with jetting all the time. The triple clamps on the GasGas are different. They're not the billet aluminum, so that is pretty unique to these. This EX has an aluminum subframe over the composite one that the Husqvarna has. That is one of the main reasons why I chose the GasGas over the Husqvarna. I would rather have the aluminum subframe. I ride and wreck too often to be replacing composite subframe. The rear shock is an exact shock that is used on both the EC and the EX platforms. This is their standard rear shock. Kind of in the cockpit up here, there is a couple things. These are neck and handlebars, and then ODI grips, Brembo brakes, of course. One thing that I do prefer about the Maguras on the Husqvarna is they fold all the way around. And the Brake Tech and the Brembo, neither of them do that. Now that Magura is not on these bikes anymore, that's kind of just what we're dealing with. It would be so cool if these wrapped all the way around stock. I just think that's a cool feature. I just think it's silly that they don't come with a handguard and skid plates, and that's definitely something that should be added on. The rims are a silver rim compared to a black rim. Kind of dates the red a little bit. I feel like a black wheel would look a little better on these bikes. The GasGas is say $600 or $700 cheaper than the Husqvarna, so that's a big deal too. Never in my life did I think I would own a red motorcycle. This red came out on the GasGas, and here I am with the red bike. I'm pretty excited about it. It is a good looking red frame, red plastics, really slick looking red KTM basically. So we're gonna race the hard enduros on it this year. We're gonna race the desert races here and there on this thing, and of course do plenty of trail riding and adventuring like that. So excited to bring you guys a solid review on this GasGas EX300 2022 edition. And yeah, good looking bike, guys. Let's go riding. Gas, literally like 2 miles to go. Super choppy rocks like this that are loose. I feel like that's where the air suspension is falls apart a little bit. A lot of guys just prefer the carb because that's what they're used to, but this thing is so much better than those bikes. I hate to say it, sorry carb guys, but she rips perfect all the time. No matter where I'm at, no matter how much elevation I'm gaining or losing, she's just ready to freaking roll. From the desert to the mountains, brand new to all worn out and scratched up. This bike, we've got about 80 hours on it now, not as shiny as it was in them previous clips. So anyways, what do I think of the 2022 EX300 GasGas? This thing, pretty freaking awesome. Stay tuned, because at the end of this video I'm going to tell you 5 things that I absolutely hate about this bike. So this thing is top notch, so fun to ride, inspiring to ride, and the 300 is just so fun and definitely competes for best all-around enduro trail bike. Let's talk reliability. Overall, this bike, really reliable. I really have come to trust the KTM brands, GasGas, Husqvarna. they're just top notch when it comes to making the bike last. You can crash these things, get up, and they're ready to go still. Some things that I'm really impressed with on these newer models is the radiator guards that come stock on the bike, like the Lures. They are so much stronger and more protective than, say, a Japanese brand. And then one thing that's really cool is I'm 80 hours into this bike's pipe and it's still okay. So these pipes, these stock pipes that come on the bikes, pretty good for a two-stroke, really strong. And then reliability wise for the whole bike, I haven't had any issues where I like broke apart and was stranded. For reliability, A+. I would say 10 out of 10. These bikes are really reliable and they run really good. The only thing that has been unreliable for me is how many times I run out of fuel on this thing. So you might have to push the bike once in a while if you're doing some desert racing without a big fuel tank. The 300 motor, the 300 bike, this thing is a blast to ride. It lugs so perfectly low and good in the low technical rough stuff. The hill climbs, oh my gosh, it's fun to do hill climbs on a 300. Another thing this bike is really good for is desert racing, going fast. It screams and it can go plenty fast, so that's an awesome perk. There's a reason the 300 is so talked about, and it's because it's a jack of all trades. I mean, this thing can do hard enduro type stuff, desert racing stuff, trail riding, and you name it, pretty much can throw it at it. With motocross, you know, cross country, this bike is really, really good, and it suits a lot of riders. Whether you're a beginner, you're not so good with the clutch, and so this bike saves that rider and keeps them going because the clutch isn't as sensitive as, say, a 4-stroke or some of the other bikes. But then again, the pros can capitalize with this bike, being able to control it. It's really a good bike for kind of everyone. So all right, so let's get into the motor. It's a low to mid motor. It has a hard hit down low, and that's a lot where the power likes to be, is kind of in the middle. The 250, to compare it to the 250 two-stroke, the 250 is kind of a linear curve and it just keeps going. It just screams all the way through the gear. And then the 300 is kind of more, I imagine it as a hill. It comes up really hard and really fast, and then it kind of dies off at the top of each gear when you're really riding it. But its power's definitely in the mid-range of the gears and the power. Has the TPI been given a bad rap? I kind of think so. I've had good luck with these. They're really good motors and they run really good. I know some people have a few problems, but I think every bike has a couple, you know, lemons. The TPI motor is fine. I like it a lot. It does good. I like it better than a carb motor, that's for sure. I really don't miss the carbs. Something cool about the TPIs too is I think they're really adjustable, a lot more than people give them credit for. From the power valve to the throttle cables to the throttle cams to the idle screw mods to the air screw, you can really get these things fine-tuned. Another thing with these bikes that I feel is really required is an idle screw mod. Putting in that idle screw really helps it with its downhill low lugging capabilities and keeps it from dying. I think it's worth putting it on them just so you can have control of that idle and adjust it to where you really like it. I think it makes a big difference on these TPIs and it's well worth doing. I actually really like the oil injection on these bikes. Pulling up to the gas station in town and just filling up at the pump is really nice, and just not really having to worry about mixing fuel and stuff. The fuel mileage on the TPI motor sucks. I think it is terrible. I've ran this bike out at 38 miles desert racing. That's not very good. Trail riding, you can stretch them out for quite a bit. You can probably get 50 miles out of a trail ride, but if you're going on a full day ride, sometimes that ain't enough. The suspension, the great debate. Oh my goodness. The air forks on this bike, I'm not really a fan. There's too much harshness in them. If you go and compare this to any other brand, they don't have that harshness that the air forks do. I don't agree on the air fork. I do not like the air fork on these EXs. I would rather ride an EC or an Enduro model with the Explore forks that's springed correctly. I think they're plusher, I think they feel better, even for desert racing. Overall though, the air fork is a good fork. You can make it work for you. This is stock. I made it work for me for 80 hours, but I just don't think they're on par with some of the spring forks that are out there today, and I think it's something that could be improved big time. The rear shock, it is good. I like the rear shock in stock form. It's very usable. I think that they've got that pretty dialed in and it feels really good. Overall, the suspension on this bike is pretty dang good. Let's talk about the chassis. I really like the chassis, the feel of this bike. The frame, everything feels really good, especially paired with the handlebars that you enjoy. Nimble, light, you can throw it around. They're really planted. These two strokes are really good. For hard enduro situations, the Husky has just a little bit lower subframe. That makes a bigger difference than I expected, like a really big difference for my size, and I'm about 6 feet tall. So kind of a little interesting. This feels a little higher up, but on the toss hand, this subframe isn't going to break. It's going to last for as long as I have this bike, whereas the composite subframes, as we've all seen, they can break. An inspiring motorcycle to ride. I really like the chassis on this two-stroke. I think it matches the two-stroke characteristics and the motor really well. This is an easy bike to ride and a really enjoyable bike to ride. The Brembo brakes work really good. Like, they're really bitey, sometimes too bitey. So you gotta get used to using them, but definitely by far the best brake on any of the manufacturer bikes. Brake pads, 80 hours and I'm still on the first set, so they last a long time. Really impressed with the brake pads actually. One thing to note is that the stock brake line, this is not the stock brake line, it's a little short. I think that it would be in the best interest to put a little bit longer brake line on there. If you run taller bars with this bike, bar risers, or say a headlight, the stock hose is not long enough. So it's just too short. So I had to put on a longer one for my headlight and then my taller bar setup. One thing that's interesting I noticed on this EX that's different from the XC and TXs, I believe, this is the Enduro Top Triple Clamp right here. It does not have the rubbers in it like the TX XC models. So this is actually a mix of the Enduro bike into this EX. I've wrecked these Enduro types on my TEs really hard a lot of times, and I've never bent any setup right here. So I think I like this clamp better. Another thing that I really like about this bike is the air filter maintenance. Really easy, no tools, and it always does a good job of keeping dirt and stuff out of there. So really good air filter system. Couple complaints here. These frame guards, I put them on because the stock ones don't come up high enough, and you actually catch yourself wearing some wear through your red, painted frame, which isn't very cool. You want to keep that really nice, so I put on these little taller Cherubies ones. That's worked out really well. Another thing that I don't love is this red seat cover. It looks good for the first little while, but after a while it kind of just gets this dark film in it and it's hard to clean, so it kind of just looks rough after a while. 5 things I hate about this GasGas. Number 1, the fuel mileage freaking sucks. I know I've already talked about it, but it is terrible. Number 2, the kickstand bolt and the rear brake spring. The kickstand bolt and the rear brake spring are known for braking. The rear brake spring breaks, it just snaps off randomly throughout a race, and then the kickstand bolt, it just, it basically unthreads itself all the time, and there's not like a solid fix for it. 3, pretty controversial, but I'm gonna say it. I hate the air forks. I really don't hate them. They're a good fork, but I just don't think it's up to the standard anymore. I really don't think that they're competitive with any of the brands. And I hate it because I don't want to buy a $10,000 dirt bike and then have to put $5,000 into cone valve setup for suspension. Give us a stock suspension that works good for off-road. Number 4, another controversial one. Silver wheels, ugh, ugly. Number 5, the package that you get with the bike isn't as good as it used to be. You used to get a big, nice binder with these bikes, and it came with a toolkit and a manual, a notebook, a pen. Let's improve that bag again. Let's get a binder and a couple little extras to go with these $10, $11, $12,000 dirt bikes. The GasGas competes side by side with the Husky and KTM. If you like red and you like a little cheaper price point, don't be afraid to go with the GasGas. Fantastic bike. I think everyone should try a 300 at some point. It won't be for everyone, but it will be for a lot of people. These are very likable bikes. If you're a mountain rider, if you like to get in the technical stuff, or just trail ride and have fun, it's really hard to beat the two-stroke. It is a really inspiring bike, and the motors are so fun to ride, and it just puts a smile on your face. Love this bike. It's been really good to me. Couple little complaints, but overall a fantastic package. Don't be afraid to pick one up for yourself. Even 2023, this bike's the exact same basically, except for bold new graphics. Thank you everyone. I threw in some riding clips, threw in some GoPro footage of racing. We've had this bike for 80 hours and I just have loved it and enjoyed it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, and then we'll be doing a couple more bike reviews like this in the future. Thank you from Explore Enduro.